Welcome everyone to this video. I would be lying through my teeth if I said I enjoyed the subject we're going to be talking about, but I really do have to talk about it. This is the Birds opening From's Gambit special. I am happy to give a recommendation against it and help y'all dodge the minefield of tricks that is the From's Gambit. Honestly, it's no secret. I've said it many times, I hate this Gambit with a passion. I wish no one would play it. Giving away the two center pawns for the F-pawn is just so strategically unsound. But they are able to really drag us through a minefield of tricks, and you're going to need to really be on your best. You're going to need to be sharp, attentive, aware, adroit. I think I ran out of synonyms, but you get the point. We got to cover this check. That's going to be mate. If we make an ignorant move like knight c3, queen h4, g3, queen takes, pawn takes, bishop takes, and that's all she wrote. Instead, we got to cover the check. We got to play knight f3. When you play the From's Gambit, 95% of the time you're going to get to this position. If your opponent has not played d6, then they're going to go somewhere else, and you'll have all the time in the world to figure things out. So let's see what happens here now. They have four main moves here. I do want to be clear, these are not easy by any means to remember. This is maybe the fifth time I'm recording this video. I'm probably going to have to pause it and go back through my chess-based files to look at all the variations because this is just a minefield of tricks. My best advice for you is never expect that you're just going to be able to win this position straight from the get-go. Instead, play with poise, play with confidence. Know that if you play correctly, you can count on a big advantage, but at the same time, just know that your opponent is playing with a full bag of tricks at his disposal. And you got to be really attentive and really aware of the situation. So let's start with knight c6. That's one of four main moves here. There's knight c6, knight f6, bishop g4, and the most popular move, g5. The problem with all of these is that you need to play different moves against each of them. That's where things start to get really tricky. Now, the bulk of players are going to play g5. That's the most aggressive move. It's threatening g4. We'll deal with that in a little bit. We'll deal with that rascal later. Instead, though, let's just talk about knight c6 for now. Knight c6, d4, knight f6. This is one of the very nice things about the From. Notice that because they don't have any center pawns, our pawns pretty much have free reign to take the high ground, assuming we have the time, though. A lot of the time, we won't have the time. Here we play bishop g5, issuing a very nice pin against the knight. They castle here, and now we reinforce our pawn with c3. And this is just a very interesting position. I think I looked at this variation like 15 times to try to memorize it for making this video. They play bishop f5, we play g3, we're going to play bishop g2, castle, and we're slightly better. This is one of the rare variations in the From in which we don't really have much of an advantage. Notice that the weaknesses of pushing the bird have been sort of revealed here. Okay, these are not the right colors. I'm looking for red. There's red. We do not want to create these weaknesses here. That is one of the problems here. When they play rook e8, we're going to have a lot of weaknesses to deal with. We are up a pawn at the end of the day, though, and if we end up losing the e-pawn, we would still be fine. The whole problem here, though, is that because of these weaknesses, it's going to be very hard for us to push that pawn up. If we are able to achieve pushing the pawn up, though, rest assured you're just going to be pretty much winning. I've had many games like this where I get an e4, push the bishop back, play e5, and already you're scooping up either the bishop or knight on f6. So that's one variation. I can only stress it so many times. I've had to look through my chess-based files many times to record this video, okay? There are lots of different pitfalls, lots of different tricks. Against each of these four main moves, you're going to need to memorize something different. I would recommend only memorizing like the first two moves, and I would recommend just focusing on the g5 line, because that's going to be the really important one. 90% of the time when I play the Froms, they just immediately throw out g5. They're going for that easy mate in 2. Instead, though, let's look at knight f6. Against knight f6 now, this is a bit different. What they want to do is something really, really barbaric. They want to play knight g4, sack on h2, and play bishop g3 mate. And so against that, you got to be a bit creative. You have to play g3. And your whole idea here is if they don't do anything special, you're going to play bishop g2, castles, and you're just going to have a great position. You could play knight c3, eventually get an e4, play d4. Notice that here we would have loved to play d4, but the whole problem here is that they're going to do something like knight g4, and problems are a-coming, captain. Knight takes h2, bishop g3. Things are getting really spicy here. For the moment, the computer of chess.com still thinks that this is okay. It's looking spicy, though. Get your hot sauce out. Instead, g3. And now they can play h5. We play d4, h5, another very common idea in these positions. They play h4, and I just wanted to show you all this line because it is just really representative of everything that goes on in these systems. I Actually, I think I got this move wrong. Wait, hold on a second. Yeah, we played d3 here. We want to cover this square. We don't want to allow the knight into e4. They play h4. We take. They play knight g4. They're still going for their knight h2, bishop g3. Funny business. They might even get rook h4 in. We play knight c3. They play knight takes h2. And here we play bishop g5. And I have this line in my bird course. My bird course, all the chess-based files, they haven't yet been uploaded onto Chessable. But I've been looking at them. I've been taking peeks at them to do this From guide for you. Because these positions are hella insane, honestly. These are really insane. Here they can throw in a check. You play king d2 and you're actually better. Believe it or not. You're just doing very well. Like if they play something like knight g4, what are you going to do here? Oh, sorry, you take the queen. What am I talking about? Yeah, they have to play f6 and then you play knight e4. This is where the line in my course ends. Suffice it to say, the fact that myself, a grandmaster, is not able to fully meander through these variations without making tons of mistakes is a sign that this is a minefield you're going to have to watch out for. Honestly, people don't really play the bird that much. People play the bird like 1% of the time. 1% of the time. So why would they ever be really well prepared against this type of system? They're not going to be, and so they're never going to remember this much theory. As the bird starts to pick up in popularity, you're going to need to become much more and proportionately better well-versed in these systems because it's hectic, guys. I do want to give some words of assurance, though, which is that I think in 95% of the games that I play against the From's Gambit, I win. I lose the rare game, and that's normally due to just being tilted, due to seeing the From's Gambit so many times, and due to pretty much just trying to win out of the gate because I'm really frankly sick of these positions. I've played them so much, and you know, every time black does the same exact thing, we're going to go over it soon enough, where they just play g5 and g4. It's super basic hot plate stuff, and yeah, I guess as you guys play the bird more and more, you might start to sympathize with with my resentment of it. But anyway, so I just want to be clear, though. These positions are really crazy. You're going to have to dodge a minefield of tricks. Now, this is against the knight f6 and h5 funny business. Now we're going to get to the two other main moves. Bishop g4. Another very serious threat here. Notice what's going on. They're going to take and then play queen h4. And if that happens, you're going to be in serious trouble. Here we play e3. Our queen is defending. And honestly, I'm going to take a little pause here just to double check the variation in the Chessable file. It was really hard to remember all of these. And we're back. So, yeah, I cannot stress this enough, guys. You got to be really on your toes against this system. I don't want anyone sending me emails complaining about how they lost to the From's Gambit. It is a bad gambit. If you play it correctly, you are going to get a very serious advantage, most likely. But you got to be careful. You got to treat this with, what are those, white satin gloves? You got to be very careful. Very fragile. It's a dangerous system. They play knight f6, we play bishop e2. And now here, they really want to gain a stake in the center, right? But unfortunately, they don't have center pawns, so they're going to have to use their bishop pawns to do the job. They're going to need to push c5 and f5 at some point. And perhaps not f5, but they are pushing c5 here, and they're encroaching on our d4 square. Here we would castle. They'll play knight c6. We'll play knight c3. They'll castle back. We'll play b3. We do need to get our bishop out. Notice the danger here. We need to be very careful about pushing this pawn. If we push this pawn, we're creating a weakness on e3. Perhaps here, I think, yeah, the computer's saying this is fine because we'll be able to eventually play e4 and build concrete. But just do make sure that if you push d3, e4 is immediately coming, because otherwise this would be a massive weakness here on a very open and very vulnerable e-file. So instead, after castles, we're just going to play b3. Our bishop is going this way. Though d3, of course, to be clear, according to chess.com computer, was completely fine. They could play rook e8, their rook goes to the center, we play bishop b2, and they play a6. It's quite interesting, the chess.com computer is only saying that white is slightly better here. I think white has a much more comfortable position here. At the moment, we weren't able to get that classic, beautiful, picturesque center with pawns on e4 and d4, but on the flip side, we're up a healthy pawn, our structure is completely sound. Black has a bit more activity, but clearly nothing close to being worth a pawn. And after we play knight e1 here, we're threatening to trade the bishops. Our knight is going to reroute to f4. Not f5, f4. This juicy green square. And yeah, we're better. I guess the whole problem here for white, and the reason why the computer is rating this so low, and only rating it at like 0.3, is that these pawns are fairly far back. As they become farther advanced, we're going to get more control over the space of the board, get a better control of the territory, and that's going to consequently equate to a much higher advantage than is being exemplified here. So, knight e1, perfect move. We're a bit better. I do want to stress, almost no one is going to play this. I have to go over one other sideline. Now comes the critical, the gorilla pawn move of the g-pawn. g5, King Kong is coming down the board. g5, black wants to play g4, kick our knight out, play queen h4, and, sign the score sheets, shake hands, wrap up the game, get home, and make it back in time for Sports Center. So, what to do here? Instead, this is pretty tricky. This is a really tricky situation. We're going to have to play a very hidden move here. We need to prepare the square for our knight. We're going to play g3. And now they play g4. We play knight h4. Now, in 95% of cases, your opponents are going to go for this idea of knight e7, knight g6. This is going to be very critical. They play knight e7, we play d4, they play knight g6, and their whole idea is they want to either crash through on h4, or if we take, they're going to take back with h-pawn. And already they have some serious threats. Their rook is shooting through here, their bishop wants to take with a check and immediately start winning pawns, pushing our king around. And I'm thinking about that. That would be a really nasty checkmate. Look at this. Takes here. Ooh. Ooh, that's painful. That's going to leave a mark. Anyway, so instead here, though, we do need to just cover this pawn. We're going to play queen d3. And luckily for us, we need to continue dodging the threats. It's not going to be that easy, but if we do continue dodging the threats, we can count on having a very brilliant advantage due to this great pawn center. Every single move, though, we need to be on the lookout for tricks. We're in a minefield. Until you get castled, until you get your pieces developed, you have not left the minefield. This is the From minefield. It is a place where on any move you could get exploded. So they could play knight c6, and now they're threatening something else. They're threatening takes, queen takes, and then bishop takes g3 with the discovery on our queen. So we got to reinforce. c3. Now apparently bishop d7 is the very best move. None of my opponents have ever played bishop d7 here. I don't think almost anyone is. Most people are going to play bishop f5 because this is what they've been taught. We play e4, and they play queen e7. In most of my games, this is where their theory ends. As the bird becomes more popular, perhaps people are going to know a bit better what to do here. But normally, this is the last position that they will have studied. We got to reinforce the pawn. We got to play bishop g2. They castle queenside. We play bishop e3. We're breaking the pin. And all of a sudden now, this bishop is hanging. Most people in this position are going to get excited because they think they can break through on g3. They're going to take, and they are forking our king and rook. But what they've forgotten is that their bishop is also hanging here. King e2, they gobble the mango up. We take on f5, and we're just completely winning. You're just up a piece here. Your king might look a little vulnerable, but you can always play knight d2, knight c4, or knight a3, knight c2 if need be. The way most of my games end here is they play something like rook e8, I play knight d2, they play bishop f4, I just defend with knight c4, I bring my rook to f1, and this position, your king is in the center, so it's a little dangerous, but at the end of the day, you're just 2 scores away from having your king in a really healthy shelter. You just need to deal with the pressure to e3 currently. And the idea is, look at it. You're only down a pawn here. These pawns are very weak. They're very fractured. You're just going to be up almost a full piece for absolutely nothing. Once your rook gets over here, I've had many positions like this where my rook gets to f1, and once that happens, if they ever take on f5, I just take back with the queen, with check, and start gobbling up everything. I take with the queen, I'm bullying them into a queen trade. All this good stuff. This is normally around the mark where people start resigning. It's very rare that a game from here will last more than 10 moves for me. And I've gotten this position plenty of times, believe you me. So this is normally what they do. They just go for something like this. I got into some type of internet argument with someone, who was on YouTube commenting, and they said that, bishop d7, knight d2 is tricky because they take here and then they're going to take on g3. Honestly, he is sort of right. If he's watching this channel, I think I got into a big argument, a big spat with him, and so perhaps he's not going to be watching anymore. But that is true. King d1 is actually a decently hard move to find, but this is a classic From idea. Once our king gets over to c2, we're completely safe. We're completely in the classic c3, d4 hut. Our knight will come to d2, and we can count on a brilliant center on d4 and e4. So king d1 is the move here. Long story short, if that was you that I got into an internet argument with, honestly, in some ways you're right. I don't think almost anyone below 2400 FIDE is going to ever play a move like bishop d7 though, because it's so counterintuitive. Normally in the Froms, you're giving up the center. You want to cash out immediately. You want to get your chips all in. Bishop d7 is a very peaceful move. It's very hard to believe that a lot of people would find that. Normally people play rook e8 here, you play knight d2, and things are going to transpose right back into what we looked at. Takes, bishop g3, king e2, bishop h2, e takes f5, and again we're just gobbling up everything. We're going to bring the rook over and collect the dividends on f5, g4, f7. Of course we want to make sure to defend this bishop first. Yeah, I really don't think there's much to add here. Just remember queen d3, that's like the biggest move you have to remember. They have a few other ways to play this. They could play h5, we play d4, they play bishop e7. And it's important to remember here that the check here is not the end of the world if we can just block with the bishop. We're going to play bishop f4. They take, we take, they take with the queen, we block, and our bishop is dominating. They've given up their best bishop. Look at how many pawns there are on light squares. This many light squared pawns, their dark squares are going to really suffer. We're going to play knight c3, queen d2, castle, occupy the full center with e4. This is a fantastic position for white. The computer already rates it as 0.7 on chess.com. From what I remember about Stockfish rates this even higher. This is a very, very healthy position. Because just, where is black's king going to go? He can't really go here because his pawns have been pushed too far, but castling this way, our bishop is also looking straight at it, and we're going to set up two bishops there. So neither of these things work. I do want to talk about one last position, which is quite interesting. If they play bishop e7 before h5, that's move number 6, we do need to dodge it because now we don't have time to play d4 and bishop f4. If we play d4 here, they're just going to crash through on h4. We might be worse. So we got to play knight g2. They play h5. They want to go h4 and crash through. We have to play knight f4, h4. We play bishop g2. Now here they have a few moves. They can get to arguably one of the most interesting positions in all of chess. They can play h3, bishop e4, f5, pushing our bishop around, bishop d3. They play knight c6, and here we play bishop e5. What can I say? That's the magic of chess. This is the Roy Lopez without having ever pushed your e-pawn. One of the truly most insane positions I've ever seen. It's a great one, and I hope you enjoy it. There is one other position I wanted to talk about. After takes, you do need to be a bit careful here. There's some crazy moves you do have to find. They can play bishop h4, and if you take, they're going to take back with your queen, completely bamboozling your king and bishop. Like takes, you are completely lost here. You're losing the bishop and you're losing the queen. So that's not good. Instead, though, you could just play king f2. You're defending. Your king might look very exposed and very vulnerable here, but you actually have quite a few minor pieces already defending it. And sooner or later, he's going to have to move his bishop back. Perhaps right now you still don't want to take because the queen check might be a bit annoying. But sooner or later, after you play something like knight c3, d4, you have more pieces around that zone, then you can start thinking about harvesting this bishop, and they're just going to be worse then. So all in all, this position is fantastic. That's pretty much the Fromm's Gambit, y'all. I hope you enjoyed this. This is a very complicated, very tactical minefield of an opening. You gotta watch out. You better not cry. I'm telling you why. But I just want you all to remember, okay, well, I don't know why knight c3 is the move. I guess it's because I used that as a sample, but that was the first move coming up in the notation. Anyway, here, I just want to remind you, against knight c6, we play d4. Against knight f6, we play, what is it, g3? Against bishop g4, I should make these different colors. Against knight c6, we play d4. Against knight f6, we play g3. Against bishop g4, we play e3. And against g5, can I find the blue arrows? Against g5, we also play g3. So g3 is the move we play against bishop g4 and g5. Most of the people are only going to play g5 here, so it's good just to really worry about that. Remember to be patient, be conservative. If your opponent starts to dawdle, you can take on the full center, but you do need to be very careful, okay? The Fromm's Gambit is truly a minefield. I like to think of the Fromm's Gambit like the Goonies. It's like that minefield. You got to navigate it. You're being chased by pirates the whole time. They're coming at you from all angles. There are boulders coming over you. You got to dodge those. You got to walk across the waterfall. You got to... What was happening there? They were playing the piano? They were playing the piano, but something was happening. It was like some type of contest. Yeah, they were playing the piano, and if they fall through the floor, if they hit the wrong key. So, the Fromm's Gambit is a lot like the Goonies, There's a minefield there. You're going to have to navigate all the booby traps. There are going to be pirates chasing you all over the place. But in the end, they made it through all those things, and at the end of the day, they had a nice treasure waiting for them on that pirate ship. And it was a glorious day. They filled up all their wallets and all their bags with jewels. They went, they saw their parents, and everything was good. It was a completely happy ending to that story. And that's more or less what the From's Gambit is all about. There is a treasure waiting for each and every one of us at the end of that tunnel, at the end of that water slide. If we can survive the minefield, if we can navigate the dangers, then we can count on a really solid, almost winning, 95% for me, 95% for me, an almost winning white advantage. Thanks for watching. I'll see you at the next one.